Hello, my name is Joshua Mugabi. I welcome you to Biology Remedial Lessons. Today, we are looking at Remedial Lesson 3, where we are going to talk about classification. What is classification? What is classification? We can say that classification is the orderly arrangement of living organisms into various groups according to their similarity. Orderly arrangement of living organisms into various groups according to their similarities. That is classification. List the external features used to classify plants. List the external features used to classify plants. We can use rhizoids, for example, in mosses, frauds, those are in ferns, roots, we have taproot, fibrous root, and modified roots. Those are some of the external features which can be used to classify plants. We have the flowers, leaves, we can use the buds, and seeds. Those are some of the external features used to classify plants. List the external features used to classify animals. We have horns, for example, in cattle, goat, sheep, deer, gazelle, among others. We have the hooves that can be found in cattle, sheep, donkeys, and many other animals. There are mammary glands found in cattle, dogs, sheep, cat, and many other mammals. We have hair that is found on man and cats and other animals. We have shell found in snail, tortoise. We have spines found in hedgehog, porcupines. Those are some of the external features used to classify animals. Give the reason why classification is important. 1. Classification places or groups living organisms into correct groups called taxa. We can group them in their domain, into kingdoms, into phylum, classes, order, family, genus, and species. Classification still can be used for identification. For example, the red fox is in domain Eukarya, kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, class Mammalia, order Carnivora, family Canidae, genus Vulpes, and species Vulpes, giving it its identification as Vulpes vulpes. Classification still arranges information about living organisms into orderly or sequential manner. That is, it is easy to study organisms in groups. You can look at the domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, depending on the way you want to look at them. Classification can help us in that way. Classification helps in understanding evolutionary relationship. If you look at organisms, you can identify whether they are evolutionally having a relationship. For example, if we look at sunflower and man, you look at that, find that they are in different kingdoms. So that one helps us to understand that there is no evolutionary relationship because they do not have any connection anywhere. Still, classification helps us to understand the evolutionary relationship whereby we can understand the organisms or group of organisms that are related. For example, if you look at orangutan, gorilla, chimpanzee, bonobos, and human, you will look at their evolutionary tree and find out where they are related. Humans are closely related to the bonobos, if you look at them, but we separate from them because we have got a common ancestry. We separated from them by reducing the number of chromosomes. And when you look at the bonobos, chimpanzee, gorilla, orangutan, they still have the same number of chromosomes, though they have undergone evolutionary divergence. But you can still try to locate where they all had a common ancestor now which is extinct. It helps us, that is classification, in monitoring disappearance and appearance of organisms. For example, also to predict the characteristics of organisms. Organisms that have extinct, like the dinosaurs, classification can help us to also predict organisms that are likely to become extinct. Name the taxonomic units for classification in descending order. Name the taxonomic units for classification in descending order. The first one, which is the largest unit, is the kingdom. That one is followed by the phylum, where we have the animals, and we can call division in plants. We have the class, that one followed by order, which is followed by family, followed by genus, and lastly, the smallest unit, which is the species. That is the classification in descending order. What is a species? A species, we can say, they are all organisms which can interbreed and give rise to a fertile or viable offsprings. All organisms which can interbreed and give rise to fertile or what we call viable offsprings are what we refer to as species. Name the major kingdoms used in classification. Name the major kingdoms used in classification. We have Kingdom Monella, Kingdom Protoctista, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Animalia, and Kingdom Plantae. Define the term binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature is a scientific system of naming organisms using the generic or the genus and specific or species name. For example, in humans, it is Homo sapien. And in the leopard, it is Pathella pardus. That is binomial nomenclature. State the principles followed during binomial nomenclature. State the principles followed during binomial nomenclature. The first, that is the generic name, should begin with a capital letter. The first, which is the generic name, should begin with a capital letter, while the rest a smaller letter. For example, man is Homo sapien. Homo is the first generic name. So it begins with a capital letter, capital H, and the others are in small letters. The two names are printed in italics, and if handwritten, should be underlined each separately. They are written or printed in italics, and if we use the hand to write them, they should be underlined, each one separately. Give the advantages of using binomial nomenclature. Give the advantages of using binomial nomenclature. Binomial nomenclature, we use the genus and the species name. Genus being the first term, and the second term is the species. For example, Rana tigrina Rosa indica, Piscium sativa, Homo sapien. Those are names of given organisms. So when we use binomial nomenclature, there is no confusion about which organism is referred to. Using binomial nomenclature, the names are internationally accepted regardless of the language. So that one now removes the other part where we say there is no confusion, because the names are internationally accepted regardless of the language. This one also shows evolutionary relationship, hence easy to understand. We can see or know the organisms that are related evolutionally, and it helps us to understand their relationship. It is also useful in the naming many species, unlike use of common names. Common names do not show any relationship in the organisms being named. Name the types of classification. Name the types of classification. We have the traditional, where we use common names, and we have the scientific, where we use binomial nomenclature. Those are the two types of classification. Hello, thank you very much for participating in classification. Let us meet again in Biology Remedial Lesson Part 4, where we shall be discussing the microscopes. Thank you. Do not forget to press that subscription button. Bye-bye.